everyone, Navs here, of course, the host of the Navs Effect. You probably already knew that if you've been listening or watching to the podcast. Now, before we talk about Game 2 of Ateneo versus UP in the UAAP Finals, I'd like to thank everyone who's been watching the last few episodes. Really appreciate it, whether that's been on YouTube or whether you've been listening on Spotify. Very grateful. Now, let's get into it. So, game two, the Ateneo Blue Eagles tied the series against the UP Fighting Maroons 1-1 after defeating UP with a score of 65-55. It was a 10-point win for Ateneo. I thought it was a very impressive win for Ateneo. Before the game, there was almost like this energy surrounding, particularly after game one. It felt like UP, I wouldn't say had this series wrapped up or, secured, but it felt like they had the upper hand and they were in the driver's seat. And I'm not sure, maybe it was just me, but there was this energy in the arena yesterday before the game where it felt like a celebration was about to happen because UP had this incredible chance to close out the series. And Ateneo just like flipped the script like right away. After the game, UP assistant coach Christian Luanza Newzone, who came to the press room to speak to the media, he mentioned how so far this series has been decided by which team can deliver that first emphatic blow. So in game one, UP comes out, scores 28 points in the first 10 minutes, leads Ateneo, and even if the Blue Eagles outscored the Fighting Maroons the rest of the way, UP still won because of that cushion that they built in the first half. And it was a similar story in the second game where Ateneo builds an early lead in the second quarter. They hold on to it in the third quarter. I thought that holding on to that lead in the third period, right when UP was about trying to make some runs, that worked to the Blue Eagles' advantage and that kept them ahead the rest of the game. It felt like a classic Ateneo win. It's tight for a little bit, and then the Blue Eagles go for on this like 3-4 minute stretch where they keep getting defensive stops. And even if their offense wasn't spectacular, they did enough, or rather, they scored enough to build on that lead while preventing UP from going on one of those explosive offensive spurts. And once you give Ateneo that 9-10 point lead in a defensive oriented matchup, it's really tough to come back against them and to beat them. Once these under Tab Baldwin, once these Eagles have that cushion, that lead, they've become very hard to stop. And that was the case again yesterday. Despite a different roster, despite a younger roster, they got the job done. I thought that the defense of the Blue Eagles took it up a notch. I felt like they were doing a better job keeping their guys, the UP players, in front of them. I felt as if also that Ateneo did a good job before UP players received passes to get them out of their spots that the UP players wanted to receive the ball at. I also felt that the Blue Eagles had better communication on defense. The help defense was better from the weak side. The timely double teams came in impressive fashion. And they played like a team that knew that if they lost, they were going home. They came out with a level of desperation that I feel like UP didn't match. I thought UP would match that level of energy, desperation from Ateneo because of how they played to start game one. But even if the game was nip and tuck for a little bit there, you felt that Ateneo had more of an energy. They were coming up with better effort with hustle plays and loose balls. And once UP went in a cold spell, Ateneo used that to build a lead. I think part of the reason why UP struggled as well is because the ball movement wasn't as good as it was in game one. I saw a lot of tweets about this after the contest where people thought UP went for the hero plays too much, the home run plays, quick 3-pointers, quick attacks, rather than trusting the process of their offense. Now, to some degree, that worked in game one, but overall, collectively, I felt like the ball movement was much better in game one because the shot quality they were getting was better than what was happening in game two. Now, some of that is because of Ateneo's improved defense, but I also thought that UP wasn't patient enough, wasn't getting the ball to the right places. There's a Filipino word for it, atat, if I pronounce it correctly. And I felt UP was atat to close the game out to win the championship. And that's a dangerous formula to play against the Blue Eagles because once you play even a little bit of undisciplined basketball, Ateneo will capitalize on that. because they will stick to their system even when things aren't going right. And there's still that well-oiled Tab Baldwin machine where they just keep chugging along, and eventually they got that short stretch right there where they were able to create the separation that they needed. And unfortunately for UP, the offense really never came, especially once Lucero got hurt in the fourth quarter. That was big. By the way, we'll talk about that a little bit in a little while. But they never really found any momentum. When you look at the stat sheet as well, UP shot 31.8% from the field. Carl Tamayo 6 of 14, JD Cagulangan 4 of 12. Of course, it hurts that Malik Diouf played only 16.3 minutes because of foul trouble, and he was limited the same day he won the MVP award. Ateneo didn't shoot that great, 39.4%. They were 26 of 66 from the field. UP was 21 of 66 too. So both teams shot same number of attempts. Now, free throws, Ateneo's 10 of 17, 58.8%. That's still not good. That's about the same percentage they shot from game one. But this time around, UP wasn't that good themselves. 7 of 15 from the free throw line, 46.7%. When you look at the other statistics, rebounding was even, 44 to 44. Assists, 13 to 13. Turnovers, 18 for UP, 15 for Ateneo. Points off turnovers, 15 for UP, 13 for Ateneo. So UP again beat Ateneo in points off turnovers, but not as much as they did last game. Fast break points, 8 for UP, 6 for Ateneo. So again, Ateneo didn't win that category, but keeping that margin slimmer than it was compared to last time allowed them to end up taking control of the contest. Second chance points this time around, Ateneo won that 16 to 12. The bench points, UP dominated that again, 31 to 17. But Ateneo returned the favor with their starters, 48 to 24. So statistically, there aren't like major discrepancies to look at and point at as, okay, that's the reason why Ateneo won. You just look at the shots. Ateneo made more shots. 26 of 66 to UP's 21 of 66. Tab Baldwin after the game said that in terms of the boundaries of sports, that's as close you get to sports fighting as possible without literally fighting, just because of how physical the game was, how much pushing there was, the little gamesmanship that goes on between the players. Well, he didn't really joke about it. He did say that he sympathizes with the refs because of how these games have to be called and how difficult it is because of everything that's on the line. And if you were there at Araneta Coliseum yesterday, the crowd was filled up for both sides. More than 20,000 people were in attendance. And the chanting, the gamesmanship between the crowds, the cheering, the jeering, there were trumpets, like little trumpets being blown, and like it was almost impossible to hear the person next to you just because of how frantic it was. Kudos to the players. They didn't shoot well, players from both teams, but to put all that energy on the back of their minds and to execute to get the job done, well, it's tough. It's so tough. You don't also often get games of this magnitude in the pro level in the Philippines. So wow, I'm that's why Baldwin was sympathizing with the referees yesterday, because it's not easy. It's not easy when, you know, each call is going to get a certain reaction from the crowd, the players, the coaching staff. Everyone is so involved in this and so invested that even the little calls can carry so much weight and really impact the game. So I'm very curious to see how game 3 will be officiated. Will it be tight? Will they let the players play? Will guys be in foul trouble? Because, you know, Tab said after the contest, you can't use game 1 and game 2 or game 2 as a reference point to determine how game 3 is going to go. And I agree. It's a winner take all, anything goes, and it's going to be very entertaining to see how that one plays out. A couple of more thoughts from the contest. Like I mentioned, I thought that UP's ball movement left a lot to be desired. And it felt like some of the shots they were making were them hoping for the result they wanted rather than trusting the process to get the result that they wanted. And that came back to bite them. I also thought Ange Kwame and Kai Balungay were absolutely incredible. I have to shout out Luis Villegas, who I interviewed before the contest yesterday. He predicted a big bounce back game for Kai, who scored 0 points in game 1. And Kai stepped up in a big way. You got to give him props. He finished with 15 points and 7 of 10 shooting. He had 5 rebounds. He was a plus 11. He was looking for his shot. He was way more assertive than he was in game one, where I felt he was kind of just blending in the background with the rest of the guys. He was getting to the rim too, whether that was on offensive rebounds or being there for opportunistic second chance points. He had that nice mid-range jumper in the fourth quarter, which I thought was like incredible because he took that confidently. He got the ball and he made it like a goal of his to attempt that shot early in the fourth quarter. I thought that was big for him. He also had a dunk in the first half. He had a lot of things going for him. And I mentioned in the last podcast after game one, Kai is too talented, too good to just blend in the background and to not assert or rather impose his will. And I felt he did that effectively in game two without hijacking too much of the offense or the system. He was playing within the system, but playing his role how he has to if Ateneo will succeed. And the Blue Eagles will need a similar performance from him in game three if they want to win the championship. Ange Kwame was big time. Big time. Now, if I ask Ange this, or if anyone asks Ange, like, did seeing Malik win the MVP award and take his spot in the mythical five maybe light a fire in him? He probably would say no. He's concentrated on winning, on getting the job done. I asked Tab Alden about it after the game too, and Coach Tab said pretty much the same thing, that he feels like Ange is focused on the job at hand. But all competitors, this is just my guess, my estimation. I felt like that did light a fire under him. And why wouldn't it? If you're a competitor, you're an MVP, you were the reigning champion. You want to get that back. It was also potentially Ange's last UAP game. We don't know if he's coming back next season. My guess is he is not. And if he was going to go out on Wednesday night for game two, he was going to go out with a bang. And he did that. He played so well. He finished with 19 points, 8 of 14 shooting from the field, 11 rebounds, 3 steals, 3 blocks, a +3. Now, part of that was because Malik did face foul trouble, so Ange was able to dominate on the glass, those putbacks. But there are some aspects on the basketball court that can't just be described by the stats. It's the eye test, the body language. And the body language from Ange was incredible. He was hustling on the floor. He was intercepting passes cross court when UP would try to run in transition. He was blocking shots. There was one sequence where he blocks a shot by Carl, who was driving in, starts shaking his head and screams, "No, no," and looking at Carl and saying, "No." And he did that a few times whenever he'd get like a block. He was looking to impose his will. He was looking to plant his flag in the paint, saying, "This is where I'm going to dominate today." And my gosh, he did. Protected the rim on one end. He was making it hard for UP to run pick and rolls because of his length. He was crashing the offensive glass. He had a nice dunk. He hit a three-pointer as well. I felt like his energy really captivated his whole team, and they leaned on that energy to ride them the rest of the way. He played like every bit of what an MVP is supposed to play like today. He was an MVP, of course, in season 84. And I feel like we are going to see the best of Ange again in game three. And I'm so excited. I really hope that Malik doesn't get in foul trouble again, because I would love to see these two UAP Titans go head to head in a winner take all. And trust me, the stakes, the energy, the atmosphere, everything in game three is going to be just amazing. I can't even describe it right now, but it's going to be one of a kind because of just everything that's on the line between these two rivals. I thought it was also big that Ateneo got productive minutes out of Gio Chu and Matthew Daves. Matthew Daves had 6 points on 3 or 4 shooting. He's plus minus says he was a -4 in the court, but I thought that producing those points in the minutes where, especially considering that Ateneo didn't get much from their backup bigs the last game, was huge. Gio Chu, 11 minutes, went 6 points, 4 rebounds. He was a +8. Now, that backup big man position has been a weakness for Ateneo this season, but the way those guys stepped up, it's exactly what their team needed of them, and they came ready for the task. So they received props. David Alfonso was 1 of 11 from the field. He did have 8 rebounds and 2 assists, though. He didn't shoot the ball well, and that's 2 straight games now where he hasn't shot the ball well. He typically struggles against UP's defense with guys like Spencer, Lucero guarding him, Alarcon too. But I felt today he made some good decisions, was moving the ball more, And even if his shot wasn't necessarily falling in, he was creating plays for others. It wasn't a perfect game, but overall, I think it was an okay floor game for Dave. Who knows? Maybe the averages progress to the mean in game three. But again, like I mentioned, UP often gives Dave problems. But we'll see. Ateneo will need him, but not just the Dave who is trying to score the basketball, the Dave who is trying to make things happen on offense. Because when he attacks the paint and he draws the defense's attention, that opens up opportunities for guys like Ange and Kai to crash at offensive glass and score and put back opportunities, which are big momentum killing plays for Ateneo against UP. So I think we're going to see more of that. On Zave's knee, now it was a non-contact injury. So that's always scary. It looks scary when it happened. I was in the lower box section watching the game as it happened, so I didn't see it all take place right away. But when I watched the replay, that looks scary. Just some information. Zabe was walking in his own power in the locker room after the game, even if he had to be carried to the dugout by Henry Galinato. There was an MRI that took place Thursday. The results are expected to be out either late Thursday night. It's Thursday as we record this, or Friday morning. Of course, the next game, game three, is on Monday at Araneta 2. Those extra days of rest will be beneficial for Zave, but of course, it depends on the MRI. Will he be good to go? This will be his last UAP game if he does play. He is leaving the UAP after the season. So, from a competitive standpoint, you'd expect that Zave might want to play that game. But again, there's so many factors involved here. The MRI is going to tell how injured that knee is, because I'm sure it won't be 100%. And will it be worth the risk for Zave to play in that game? There's a similar situation last season, not exactly the same, but CJ Cancino hurt his knee. I believe that was a second round game against Ateneo, actually. And then he did make his return in game three of the finals, but the knee was pretty bad, and that's why he's out this whole season with an ACL injury. So hopefully it's nothing bad like that for Zay. We don't ever want to see basketball players get hurt that way. But just from a X's and O's perspective, UP needs Lucero and what he brings on both ends of the court, particularly defense, I think, because he also does a good job protecting the rim when Malik isn't in there. He stops a lot of transition opportunities by the other team just with effort and contesting shots. And of course, his all-around game on offense will be much needed, because if you look at the system Coach Gold likes to run, Zave is very crucial for it. Zave won't dominate the ball. He won't call on his number over and over again to look to score. He will do what the moment, the situation needs. And UP needs that glue guy for their offense to hum. But again, health is wealth. So whatever Zave decides to do, hopefully it's with the context of what's best for him, or what he feels is best for him. I asked this question on Twitter. I'm not sure when was the last time UP beat Ateneo in Araneta Coliseum. Was it 2009, that year that the Maroons, when they were one of the bottom teams of the UAP, upset a championship caliber Blue Eagle squad? I'm not sure if that was in Araneta or Phil Sports. Someone tweeted at me saying it was at Phil Sports. But if that's the case, so when was the last time UP won in Araneta against Ateneo? It's tough, but hey, UP can make history by winning a second championship in the same year. And if they do that while also beating Ateneo in Araneta, well, that's going to be some sort of history as well. It's not going to be easy, though. The Blue Eagles, look, I have no statistics or context to prove this, but I just feel like the Blue Eagles are much better when they play at Araneta compared to Mo Arena. But hey, it's game three. Like they say, bilog ang bola. Anything can happen. And one thing I know for sure is both teams are going to leave everything on the court. This is what we college basketball fans live for. I know I'm media, but I'm still a college basketball fan. I love these games. I love this kind of competition. And it's winner takes all. Everything's out of the line. It's 40 minutes of intense basketball. It's 40 minutes that players, coaches, everyone who's going to be in that arena or watching from home will never forget, because this has the potential to be 100% epic. And only one team can win the championship. Catch y'all after game three.